Do any of you like Will Ferrell movies? Of course you do, because you all look like sensible adults. One of my favorite lines from the cinematic classic Kicking and Screaming is, "I was born a baby." A blank slate, believing I was in control of my own destiny. And where we all know what babies are, we may not realize how much audacity a baby really has. Babies come into this world kicking and screaming and demanding the attention and adoration of everyone within earshot. I and you were born babies with a spark of independence. But then something, no. You know what? We're going back. I was born a baby. Everyone in earshot, tiny, cute, with no awareness of limitations, absorbing messages of you can achieve anything. You and I were born babies with unlimited possibilities, and then something changes. Something changes in how our audacity is perceived. Something dims our light. Audacity is a word that has dual meaning. The first equating to boldness and willingness to take risks, oftentimes given the example of knightly valor. The second has a more negative connotation that defines it as being rude or bad behavior, disrespectful behavior, oftentimes boiling down to something that no one in academia wants to be associated with: arrogance. From audacious babies, we move into adolescence. And my childhood was no different than yours. I explored, I questioned, I excelled, I got in trouble, and I evolved. And when I tell you I evolved, when I tell you I excelled, I really excelled. I was in talented and gifted classes, and I basked in my identities as a smart kid. But as I got older and older and older, something that I was once celebrated for stopped being perceived in the same way. My light that I came into this world with started to experience the outside elements. Inclusive excellence in communities is to support the audacity of individuals. The support of audacity keeps the flame burning for diversity, community, and connectedness we seek at UMBC. So talking to my mom, that's my mom, talking to my mom about preparing for this, I started to speak to her about some of my frustrations about how my audacity was perceived, and she offered me some food for thought. Jack, you have always been special and outspoken, obviously. And as a little girl, you were wise beyond your years and used questions as a way of reasoning and meaning making. Okay, go on. Frankly, you got on my nerves a lot of times. But I understood where it came from. Others, not so much. You cannot fault anyone for not understanding your audacity, but rather it's your responsibility to nurture it and teach the world about why it's important. She also followed up with a question, a question to me where she said, "Why do you think I rarely punished you at home when you got in trouble at school?" Now, I wasn't bad, but you don't get to be 5 foot of dynamite without being a little bit of a firecracker as a child. She proceeded to answer her own question, because that's what mothers do. And she said, "Because normally, you were the right party in the situation." My mind was blown. She added that frequently I was given the compliment that you are such a smart little girl, And frequently, and just as frequent, she would get the comment that I am something else. Something else being that fine line between smart and smartass. Adults, especially in my school, took my inquiry, my desire for direct answers, and my insights as calculated attacks on them and what they knew. They didn't see it as curiosity, because that's just what I was. I was seeking knowledge and little embers to light my flame. But my teachers, on the other hand, thought that I was just being arrogant. And oftentimes, it felt like they were smoldering my light. My mom, recognizing the slow breezes in my direction, started to silently bring kindling to my fire. She realized that I was just displaying that intrepid boldness audacity rather than the arrogant disregard for authority. Much like another scene in one of my favorite Will Ferrell movies, the teachers thought I was ready to come at them like a spider monkey when that was not the case. Nevertheless, time goes on. And as you grow, just like I grew, my mother gave me independence. And with the independence, her shielding from the elements started to distance. Now, we all reach the point in life where cute stops being so cute. And how audacity is perceived becomes something else. And as a result of perception, it starts to be performed different. It shifted for me when I started to work. And my understandings of who I was and all of my identities started to shift. From girl to woman, living my life, I slowly started to wipe the crust from my eyes and see the true double standards in my identities and how they were perceived, especially in the workspaces. In the same circles where I was doted on for being my most black, brilliant, outspoken, and cute self, it slowly became less and less acceptable. Cute morphed into new adjectives as I got older, and so did other things. Using words and phrases that were familiar to me and people in my neighborhood became painted as uncultured. Being competitive, loud, or animated painted me as aggressive. And public displays of emotion around injustices that affected me and other people like me painted me as angry. The audacious flames of my childhood started to feel the wind. And as I pursued more things in my career, I started to feel like my audacious flames were being doused with buckets of water. In retrospect, when thinking about this, I did the first part of what my mom said very well, nurturing my own audacity. But I neglected in aiding the world in understanding it. I started to recess into my work persona that had audacity, but it wasn't authentically me. Initially, in private, I would seek out professional opportunities, applying as myself. But over time, due to the words and the thoughts around my persona, I stopped. I stopped allowing myself to even pursue opportunities that would allow me to advance in a way that was authentic to me. As a self-saboteur, the identity and values that I brought to the workspace were diminishing. We all have self-doubt. And it comes at a point in our career. Some of us suffer, like I did, from imposter syndrome, where we were just waiting to be ousted and not really believing that we deserved the opportunities that were coming. It was a perpetual catch-22. In spaces that desired and avidly recruited diversity, I realized that they did not love my brand of audacity. So I started to present the palatable version of myself, over-demonstrating my value, living the adage of working 10 times as hard to earn half as much, taking in opinions and performing based on other people's standards of who I was. You are looking at somebody who has never went to an interview wearing her own natural hair. This and other conventions have been used by women of color for years as means of professional advancement. And it has served us well. But for me, it was the smothering of who I was at my core. After dealing with a lot of personal and professional twists and turns, some of my biggest breakdowns: homelessness, underemployment, and being unfairly removed from my graduate program, I was set up for some of my biggest breakthroughs. I realized that it was my job to not rob myself of my light, but to share it with others. Because when I robbed myself, I also robbed others of the core value of diversity. My shift started with a choice. I chose me. I chose me in all my audacity. And I started to see personal and professional growth in my audacity, and I remained just as blazing as I was as a child. I realized that I didn't need to change, but that the world needed to change. And instead of sitting in it, I decided to be a catalyst in it. As I healed, I moved, and I started doing things for me. I found community. I reconciled some parts of my audacity with some of my situational failures. I stopped apologizing for being who I am. I accepted being young as it was only a condition of time. I boldly walked into my blackness in all workspaces because I am this upon arrival, and it'll never rub off. I sashayed into my femininity and decided what parts I wanted to express and what parts I valued. And I reclaimed my lost identity of being a smart girl because I know what I know. And I can't do anything about it if you do or don't care for it. Audacity is not just the belief that we deserve all that life has to offer us, but that life deserves all of us in all of our audacity. So how do we bring ourselves to the workplace? How do we develop? How do we leverage our own personal brand of audacity? First, allow yourself to explore what audacity means to you. So in 2017, like many millennials do, on New Year's Day, I made an announcement via Facebook that I was gonna do 10 speaking engagements. And I decided that I was going to apply as myself in all of my audacity and show up. I put pen to paper. I wrote 32 proposals. I had 20 speaking engagements, and my staff here can tell you that that's a real life fact. I presented at 7 student conferences. I presented at 3 community engagement conferences. I did 2 national and 1 regional student leadership conference, and I participated as a facilitator in one local branch of a national civic engagement conference that I participated in as a student over 8 years ago. Oh, it's not done. I also launched my social entrepreneurship endeavor, Communiversity, by applying to the Baltimore Core Elevation Award on a whim. I was awarded $10,000. All due to seeking genuine fulfillment in my audacity. Communiversity was literally birthed out of the audacity to apply. Now, the second part is an invite, right? I'm going to invite you to get some glasses. The kind are up to you. Some of you may need seeing specs like myself, and others of you might need sunshades. The ways that you can aid the world in understanding is reframing your thoughts around audacity. Words mean things and have many meanings. Challenge yourself to think about how you're perceiving others' audacity. Support the narrative of the individual. Supporting the narrative of the individual is oftentimes more important than supporting the group of people that that person might represent. Allow yourself to show up everywhere. Show up in how you apply, show up in how you live, and live your most audacious life. And challenge the social norms around what's acceptable behavior for audacity. Issa Rae, Donald Glover, and my muse and intrepid boldness, Tiffany Haddish, is a comedian, an actress, a product of the foster care system, who went from hood to Hollywood being her most whole, bold, and audacious self. She shows us time and time again that speaking truth to your own power can be a catalyst for professional growth. The last part is for your shade folks, right? For my people who are not yet ready to engage in the conversation, please do one of my favorite lessons from childhood. That was a hard lesson for me to learn at times. Listen. If you aren't ready to engage, take a step back, throw on your shades to not block anybody's shine, and let their light resonate. At my alma mater, there's a rite of passage called the Promethean Walk, where all of the freshmen have a candle, and they're supposed to walk from one location on the campus to another location, keeping their flames lit. Now, the catch is all upperclassmen are there trying to blow out their fires. It is the work of the collective community to see the task get completed by keeping each other's flames going that is important. Audacity, though housed in the individual, is fostered by community. And I would say audacity is arguably the driving force behind all of your professional advancement. My full circle flame story started with a spark of audacity. And it ends with me leaving you with some thoughts that will hopefully shift the paradigm around how audacity is perceived on this campus, to be more inclusive or to continue the culture of inclusive excellence. I have been able to develop professionally and personally through my certain special brand of audacity, and I believe you can too. It was with my light that I came on this stage, I walked, I spoke to a bunch of you that I do not know, I commanded your attention, and will graciously take your adoration at the end. So please, allow yourself and others to let their internal audacious light shine in the same way we all entered this world as babies. Thank you.